Today, we're in something a little different.
A little bit, yeah.
Usually, we take a topic, tech, history, a cultural movement,
Mm-hmm.
and we peel back the layers. But today, we're turning that lens inward. We're calling this one, and maybe this whole new approach, inner astrology. It's a bit of a rebrand, isn't
Yeah.
it? But I think it's a necessary one.
I think so too. And look, before half the audience rolls their eyes and clicks away because they think we're about to talk about whether Mercury being in the microwave means they should break up with their boyfriend.
Right.
Let's just set the stage. We are not doing pop astrology today. This isn't about your daily horoscope.
No. We aren't doing the whole I'm a Gemini, so and chatty thing, and we certainly aren't predicting lottery numbers or anything like that. It's not the goal here.
The premise we're working with today, and really the core philosophy of this whole inner astrology idea, is actually pretty grounded. It's this idea that life often feels difficult. Not because you have bad luck, and not because the universe is out to get you.
But simply because of a lack of deep self-understanding.
Right. It's like if you don't know how the machine you're driving actually works, you're going to strip the gears. You're going to put the wrong fuel in.
You'll wonder why it's making all that noise.
Exactly. So the goal here is to use the birth chart as a diagnostic tool, a mechanical blueprint. We want to understand why we struggle, why we get tired, and maybe how to live more easily by actually obeying the mechanics of our own system.
I really love that framing. It takes all the morality out of it. It's not I'm lazy, it's my engine is overheating.
It's engineering, not judgment. That's the key.
Okay, so to test this out, to really put it through its paces, we are looking at a specific case study. We have a birth chart here for a very specific date and time. June 11, 1991 at 09:15 a.m.
A specific human being somewhere out there in the world living this chart every single day.
And in the source material we're working from, this person isn't named, of course, but they are given an archetype, a title. The text calls this profile, a fast mind in a loud world.
And that just hits, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
And honestly, even if you weren't born on this date, even if you couldn't care less about astrology, I have a feeling a lot of people listening are going to identify with the symptoms we're about to break down.
I think so too, because this chart, it really represents a very, very modern problem, a modern condition almost.
The hook for me, when I was reading through the analysis, was the central contradiction. This is a person described as incredibly gifted, quick, intelligent, but at the same time, mentally crowded and just emotionally tired. The phrase that really stuck with me was, a person who understands things instantly, but rests very slowly.
That is a friction that defines so many high performers today. I mean, we live in an information age. It's a constant barrage. So if you're someone whose thoughts run faster than your ability to settle down, this deep dive is for you.
Right.
Our mission today is to dissect the why behind that mental saturation. Why does this person feel such performance fatigue? And more importantly, how do they actually find some quiet?
So let's open up the hood. We have the chart in front of us. Where do we even begin with a machine that's built to run this fast?
We have to start with the filter. It's the lens through which they see everything. In astrology, people usually talk about the big three, sun, moon, and rising sign. But here we have something more intense.
What do you mean?
We have the sun, the moon, and Mercury all sitting in the exact same sign, all in Gemini.
Whoa. Okay, so I see that in the notes. The big three, or at least the core identity, the emotional body, and the mind, are all in air signs.
All in air, and not just any air, they're all in mutable air.
Okay, stop right there. Mutable air. That sounds like a weather forecast for a confusing day. What does that actually mean for a human being walking around in the world?
Well, think about the quality of air itself. It moves, it circulates, it transmits sound, data, information. It doesn't really have a solid form.
It's all about connection and transmission.
Precisely. And Gemini is the sign of communication, connection, curiosity, data points. Now, mutable just means it's adaptable. It changes direction really easily. It's flexible. So when you have the sun, your core vitality, your life force, and the moon, your entire emotional landscape, and Mercury, your cognitive processor, all in this one sign, you're essentially building a supercomputer, not a fortress.
So their first interface with reality is intellectual.
The interface is mental through and through. Life is not felt immediately by this person. It is filtered through thought first. Everything gets processed.
Wait, hold on a second. Life isn't felt immediately. It sounds a little bit, I don't know, robotic. Can you explain what that looks like in practice?
It's not robotic at all. It's just a different order of operations. So imagine you walk into a crowded party. Some people, let's say people with a lot of water in their chart, they walk in and they just feel the vibe.
Right, they get a gut feeling.
They feel the heaviness in the air or the joy or the weird tension between that couple in the corner. It hits them viscerally in the body.
Okay, I get that.
But this chart, this person walks into that same party and immediately starts to process the room. The mind is instantly scanning.
Taking inventory.
A constant inventory. Why is that chair placed there? Who is talking to whom? Oh, look at that micro expression on that guy's face. I think he's lying. What objects in this room imply status? What's the network map here?
So they are databasing the party in real time.
They're decoding it. Events happen, and this person's system immediately grabs the data, puts language to it, finds a pattern, and categorizes it. It's like having a live commentary track running over your own life 24/7.
I mean, that sounds incredibly useful if you're a spy or a journalist or, well, a podcast host.
It's incredibly useful, and the source text is very clear about the gifts here. We're talking about high intelligence, extreme adaptability, constant curiosity, versatility. Words and connections form instantly. They can synthesize 3 different conversations at once and find the common thread.
But I'm sensing a very big but coming. There's a tax for that, isn't there?
There is a massive tax, and the analysis calls it mental saturation.
Because the machine just never, ever turns off.
It never goes offline. Think about it for a second. If every single experience, from a major life event like a breakup down to the choice of a breakfast sandwich, is a mental puzzle to be solved, described, or categorized.
The brain is just constantly revving.
Constantly. The nervous system is always in a state of high-frequency processing. It's like a computer that has too many tabs open all the time, and the fan is just whirring and whirring.
I'm looking at the notes here, and it says, the nervous system rarely goes offline. That explains so much. It explains why this person might feel completely exhausted, even if they've just been sitting on the couch all day.
Exactly. Physical rest is not the same as mental rest. You can be lying in bed, but if your mind is replaying a conversation from 2014 or analyzing why the paint on the ceiling is peeling in that specific pattern, you are not resting.
You're burning fuel.
You're burning glucose. You're running the processor at full tilt.
So the difficulty in life for this person arises not because they aren't capable, they're hyper-capable, but because the engine is running at 5,000 RPMs while the car is in park.
That is the perfect analogy.
Okay.
And over time, as any mechanic will tell you, that strips the engine. It leads to burnout.
Okay, so we've established this hyperactive processor, but you mentioned the moon is also in Gemini. Now, I know enough about astrology to know the moon is supposed to be our soft side, our emotions, our needs, how we feel safe. So if the moon is in Gemini, does that mean their feelings are thoughts?
You've just hit on the million-dollar question. And this brings us to the second, deeper layer of the struggle: emotional safety versus analysis. The moon in a chart dictates how we learn to feel safe in the world. It's our infant self, our most basic needs.
So a Cancer moon feels safe when they're nurtured. A Taurus moon feels safe when they have money in the bank and a good meal.
Exactly. They are very tangible sensory needs. But for a Gemini moon, safety equals understanding.
I am safe if I know what is going on, if I can explain it.
Precisely. The core mechanism here is that feelings are only perceived as manageable if they can be named, explained, analyzed, or, most importantly, discussed.
I think I know people like this. When they're going through a really tough breakup, they don't just cry and eat ice cream and listen to sad music.
No.
They want to talk about why the breakup happened. They need to understand the mechanics of the failure. They want the autopsy report.
They want to interview the grief. Hello, grief. Where did you come from? Is this a recurring pattern? How does this relate to my childhood attachment style? Let me read 3 books on attachment theory to understand you better.
Let me write a thesis on my own sadness.
And while that sounds incredibly productive and self-aware, it can actually be a trap. The source text has a really potent phrase for this. It calls it a subtle form of moon deficiency.
Whoa, deficiency. That sounds pretty harsh. Are we saying this person is emotionally stunted or something?
No, and I want to be very, very careful with that word. It's a great question. It does not mean they lack emotions. In fact, they can be very emotional. It means they lack stillness in the emotions. The system learned very early on, probably as a child, if I can understand what is happening, I will be okay. Understanding became the survival strategy.
So the default setting for any emotional state is figure it out. Analyze it.
Correct. But here is the fundamental problem. You cannot figure out a feeling. You can only feel it. If you are constantly analyzing your sadness, you aren't actually feeling the sadness. You are dissociating from the raw sensation by moving up into the head.
That is actually really profound. So they can appear to be functioning perfectly fine. They can talk about their trauma with incredible eloquence at a dinner party, but they're mentally exhausted because they haven't actually processed the emotion somatically in their body.
Precisely. They are carrying the weight of the emotion and the weight of the endless analysis of that emotion. It's literally double the work.
And it creates this illusion of processing without any of the actual release.
That's it. And there's another layer to this moon, right? The notes you have mentioned something called the balsamic moon. Now, that sounds like a salad dressing, but I assume in this context it means something quite different.
It does. It has nothing to do with vinegar. It refers to the phase of the moon at the exact moment of birth. A balsamic moon is the very, very end of the lunar cycle. It's that tiny, waning crescent you see just before the new moon when the sky is almost completely dark. Okay, so the tank is empty, metaphorically.
Not empty. I'd say it's full of history. A balsamic moon suggests a soul that is here for reflection, transition, and closure. It's a life that's meant to be lived in the making meaning phase.
That's interesting. So if a new moon person is here to, start new things, be a pioneer, the balsamic person is here to wrap things up.
To synthesize, to look back at the cycle that has just passed, or the life they are currently living, and distill the wisdom from it. It's the energy of the elder sitting by the fire telling the story of what happened and what it all meant.
But wait a minute. We just spent 10 minutes talking about how this person has a Gemini mind-fast, twitchy, curious, obsessed with new information. And now you're telling me their soul, their deep emotional core, wants to sit by the fire and slowly reflect.
Do you see the conflict?
That's a massive internal conflict. It's like a race car driver whose secret dream is to be a gardener.
It is the central tension of this entire chart. Modern life and their own Gemini Mercury demands constant urgency. What's next? What's new? Scroll, click, learn, go. It's a forward-moving energy. But their soul, that balsamic moon, craves slowness. It craves digestion and reflection.
So when they force themselves into that nonstop productivity, that hustle culture, they aren't just getting tired physically. They're actually violating their own spiritual rhythm.
They are trying to sprint a marathon when they are designed to meander through a forest. Their greatest wisdom comes from synthesis, not from hustle. But the world and their own mind is constantly screaming at them that they need to run faster.
So we have a fast processor, but a very slow digestive system. That is a recipe for a constant stomachache.
Or a mental breakdown. Which brings us to the next point, the mask. Because if you met this person on the street, you probably wouldn't see any of this internal churning, this deep conflict.
Right, let's move to the outside of the house, as the notes say. The source text talks about Leo energy and the public mask.
Yes. So we've established the internal world is air. It's mental, it's fast, it's analytical. But the rising sign, the ascendant, which is the interface with the external world, is Leo.
Leo, the lion. That's fire. That is a very, very different element from Gemini air.
It's a totally different energy. Leo is presence. It is performance. It is warmth and radiance. A Leo rising creates a person who naturally stands out, even if they don't try to, even if they're an introvert.
So they walk into a room and people just notice them.
They have a certain gravitational pull, and I want to be really clear about this. They don't necessarily seek attention. Internally, they might feel incredibly shy or anxious, but they possess a strong, warm, energetic presence that others latch onto. They look confident. They look like they know what they're doing.
So let's paint a picture. Internally, their Gemini brain is firing on all cylinders. What is happening? I need to analyze this. I'm anxious. Is that person looking at me? Did I say the right thing? But externally, they are smiling, radiant, and shaking hands like a natural leader.
Exactly. And that creates a profound split, a dissociation between the internal reality and the external expectation. People see that Leo mask and they project onto it. They expect the warmth, they expect the show, they expect the confidence.
And if you are an internal processor who desperately needs to analyze things and retreat, having to constantly perform radiant sunshine must be unbelievably exhausting.
It leads to what the source material calls performance fatigue. This is highlighted as a major source of their burnout. It's the feeling of always, always being on. Because the world rewards the Leo mask. The world loves the show.
But the Leo energy isn't just a mask, is it? Looking at the chart here, there's something called a stellium in Leo. Venus, Mars, and Jupiter are all clustered there.
Yes, that's a crucial point. A stellium is a cluster of 3 or more planets in one sign. It's like a heavyweight on one side of the boat. It pulls all the energy in that direction. So it's not just that they look like a Leo on the outside, their core values, their sense of beauty.
That's Venus.
That's Venus, their drive, their ambition, their anger.
Mars.
And their philosophy, their optimism, their belief system. That's Jupiter. All of it is filtered through this dramatic, expressive, creative fire sign.
So what does that actually do to all those Gemini ideas we talked about? We have the Gemini mind generating a million thoughts a minute. What does the Leo stellium demand to be done with them?
Think of it like a digestive system again. The Gemini part is the mouth. It takes in information. It's chewing on data constantly. But that Leo stellium is the metabolism. It needs to burn that fuel to create heat and light and energy.
So the input needs an output, a creative output.
Yes. This is absolutely critical for this person's health. If the Gemini mind just collects the dots, the Leo planets are screaming to connect them in a way that entertains, inspires, or moves an audience. Ideas must become embodied expression.
So they can't just learn for the sake of learning. They have a deep biological need to share it, to teach it, to perform it.
They have to. If they just keep eating data, reading the news, scrolling social media, learning new facts, but they never burn it off by creating something, performing something, or speaking their truth publicly, they get a kind of spiritual indigestion. The whole system clogs up and becomes toxic.
That explains the restlessness. It's like filling a balloon with water. If you don't find a release valve, it eventually just it has to burst.
And speaking of bursting, we have to talk about Mars. Mars is in Leo in this chart. And Mars, as you said, represents how we fight, how we assert ourselves, and our anger.
The source text makes a really interesting point about redefining anger for this person. It says their anger is creative. What on earth does that mean?
Usually we think of anger as interpersonal. You know, I'm angry at you, or you stole my parking spot. But with Mars in Leo in this specific configuration, anger is rarely about petty conflict. The source of their anger is almost always blocked expression.
Wait, hold on. So they get angry because they haven't made art or written their blog post.
They get angry when their enthusiasm is dismissed, when their creative ideas are ignored, when they feel constrained, censored, or made to feel small. The anger is a powerful signal from the body that the creative life force, that big, radiant Leo energy, is being capped.
That is absolutely fascinating. So if this person is feeling irritable or snappy or just filled with a low-grade rage, the solution isn't necessarily conflict resolution or an anger management class.
No, not at all. The solution is to go sing, or go write, or go dance, or get on a stage.
Creative movement.
Flow dissolves the frustration. They need to get the energy out of the body through joyful, creative expression. The antidote to their anger is visibility and flow. If they are hiding, they get sick. The anger literally poisons them.
Okay, let's just pause and recap for a second, because this is a really complex machine we're building. We have a super fast analytical mind that never shuts off. That's the Gemini. We have a deep, wise soul that craves reflection and meaning. That's the balsamic moon. And we have this massive biological need to perform and express and be seen. That's the Leo. That already sounds like a lot to manage.
It is. It's a car with a race car engine, a contemplative driver, and a really loud horn. But we haven't even touched the heavy stuff yet. We haven't talked about the brakes.
Right. The source text brings in the headmaster, segment 4, the weight of the world. This is where Saturn and Capricorn come in.
Because if Gemini is the playful, curious child and Leo is the dramatic performer, Saturn is the stern father figure standing in the corner with a stopwatch and a clipboard, judging everything.
And in this chart, Saturn is in Aquarius and it is retrograde. Okay, I've heard of Mercury retrograde. Everyone panics when that happens. Communication goes haywire. But if you have Saturn retrograde in your birth chart, that's permanent.
It is a permanent feature of the internal landscape, yes.
So what does that mean? What's the effect?
Think of Saturn normally as a police officer on the street corner, an external authority. If you speed, you get a ticket. That's society telling you to follow the rules. It's pressure from the outside.
Okay, makes sense.
But when Saturn is retrograde at birth, the police officer isn't on the corner, he's sitting in your passenger seat.
Oh no, that's so much worse.
And he's not just watching your speed, he's critiquing your route, your fuel efficiency, and constantly asking you if this trip is even meaningful enough to justify the gas. Is it a valuable contribution to society?
So the authority, the judgment, the pressure, It's all internalized.
Completely and totally. This creates a massive internalized sense of responsibility, a relentless pressure to be useful, to be productive, to contribute something meaningful to the collective.
That seems like it would be in direct contradiction to that playful Gemini lightness, doesn't it? Gemini just wants to play with ideas. Oh, look, a butterfly. Oh, look, a cool fact about Roman history. But Saturn is standing over its shoulder asking, yes, but is it important?
Is it essential? Does it serve a higher purpose? Does it help humanity? That is the core tension. The lightness of the mind is constantly being weighed down by the heaviness of the conscience. The big life lesson for this Saturn is learning that contribution does not require self-sacrifice. You don't have to bleed to be useful.
It just sounds like a recipe for a very, very harsh inner critic.
The harshest, relentless questions like, am I doing enough, and is this valuable, and is this my best work, just haunt the mind.
And it's not just Saturn. The chart analysis lists a lot of other Capricorn influence. We've got Uranus, Neptune, the North Node, and something called Lilith, all in Capricorn. That's a lot of heavy, earthy, serious energy.
It is a profound amount. And Capricorn, you know, it's the architect of the zodiac. It is all about structure, endurance, responsibility, and climbing the mountain, no matter how hard it is.
So how does that fit in with the fast mind and the loud Leo energy? Why is all this heavy earth here? What purpose does it serve?
It acts as a survival strategy. The analysis suggests that the system learned very early on that competence creates safety. If I am structured, if I am reliable, if I am the rock for everyone else, then I am safe.
Structure as a shield.
Yes. If I build a fortress of competence around myself, nobody can hurt me, nobody can criticize me. But the trap, as highlighted so clearly in the source text, is that too much structure suppresses softness.
Softness, that's a word we really don't value enough in our culture.
We don't. We see it as weakness. But softness is the ability to be fluid, to be receptive, to be weak, to be unsure. When you have this much Capricorn energy, you tend to create a life of chronic self-pressure. You find it incredibly difficult to rest without feeling guilty.
I think a lot of people can relate to this one. That feeling of being productive. You know, you checked everything off the to-do list, but at the end of the day, you don't feel nourished.
Productive but not nourished. That is the Capricorn trap in a nutshell. You climbed the mountain, you got to the summit, but you forgot to eat lunch or look at the view.
So the deep need here is for vulnerability, but vulnerability without a purpose.
Precisely. The need is to do things that have no ROI, no return on investment, to just be. And that is absolutely terrifying to a system that's been built on the belief that worth comes from doing.
It feels like a complete waste of time.
And yet, it is the only thing that can actually refill the well for this person.
We've covered the mind, the mask, and the burden. But there's one more piece in the source material that feels, honestly, it feels a bit sad, or at least very tender. The hidden wound, Chiron in Cancer.
This is the 12th house wound. Now, for listeners who might not know, the 12th house in astrology is sort of like the closet of the zodiac. It's the blind spot. It's the stuff you hide even from yourself. It's the pre-verbal inherited stuff.
And Chiron is known as the wounded healer.
Yes. Chiron represents a deep spiritual soreness, a place where we feel fundamentally broken, but also where we eventually find profound wisdom to help others with that same wound. And with Chiron in the sign of Cancer in the 12th house, the wound is about emotional holding.
What exactly does that mean, emotional holding?
It suggests a deep, quiet, unspoken sense of having to hold oneself together emotionally, of being the protector for others while staying completely unseen yourself. It's a profound need for comfort, for mothering, essentially, but an inability to ever ask for it.
That is heartbreaking, actually, especially when you contrast it with that bright, confident Leo rising we talked about.
It is the ultimate paradox of this chart. The Leo rising says, look at me, I am radiant, I am strong, I am fine. The Gemini moon says, let's talk about the problem, let's analyze it and figure it out. But that 12th house Chiron in Cancer whispers, I must suffer this alone. I must hold this in the dark. Nobody can ever know how much I need to be held.
So there is a secret foundational loneliness.
A secret, nonverbal loneliness. And here is the absolute key to this part of the chart. The healing for this specific wound cannot come from explaining it.
Which is the exact opposite of what the Gemini moon wants to do.
It's the one problem the Gemini mind cannot solve. The Gemini part wants to talk it out. If I can just explain my loneliness perfectly, maybe it'll go away. But you cannot talk your way out of a 12th house wound. It's pre-verbal. It existed before language.
So what's the prescription? If talking doesn't work, what does?
The analysis calls for creating private emotional safety.
What does that look like in a practical day-to-day sense?
It looks like gentle routines. Nonverbal comfort, a weighted blanket, a hot bath, sitting with a pet, spending time in nature. Any activity where you don't have to explain yourself to anyone. It's about being held, physically or metaphorically, without the demand of language.
It's the one space that counteracts all the mental noise from the rest of the chart. It's the silence that heals.
Yes. It is the one place where the supercomputer must be allowed to shut down completely.
This is such a complex and beautiful picture you've painted. We have a mind that races, a deep need to shine, a crushing sense of responsibility, and this secret hidden wish to just be held. So let's move to the synthesis. The source text asks the big question. Why is life so hard for this person, and how do we make it easy?
Okay, let's look at the hard column first. Based on everything we've discussed, why does this person feel like they are constantly struggling, pushing a boulder uphill?
Based on what we've said, it seems to come down to a fundamental misalignment between the different parts of the system.
It is. The difficulty arises specifically when, 1, the mind never ever rests. That's the Gemini overdrive. 2, creative expression is suppressed or judged. That's the Leo being blocked.
3, structure and rigidity replace softness and vulnerability.
The Capricorn trap. And 4, performance replaces presence. That's the Leo rising fatigue.
It's a perfect recipe for burnout. You're overthinking, overworking, hiding your true needs, and performing a version of happiness you think the world wants to see.
Correct. The entire system is chronically overstimulated and deeply undernourished. But, and this is the most important point, nothing is wrong with the person. They aren't broken. They're just operating this very high-spec machine incorrectly.
So let's flip it. Let's talk about the easy column. What is the inner astrology solution? How does this person find ease and flow?
It comes down to 4 pillars, and these are really actionable things you can do. First, and most importantly, mental quiet. You have to create intentional, sacred space where the processing stops.
Now wait. We kind of established that their brain can't stop. So how do they actually do this? Is it just meditation?
I think traditional meditation might be actual torture for this person. Sit there and watch your thoughts. They have too many thoughts, it would just become another performance.
Right, they'll just start analyzing the meditation. Am I doing this right? My breathing feels weird. Is this thought profound?
Exactly. So it needs sensory deprivation or total sensory absorption, staring at a candle flame, listening to a single frequency or binaural beats, floating in an isolation tank, anything that does not input new data. They need to starve the processor for 20 minutes a day.
Okay, starve the processor. I like that. What's the second pillar?
Expression without outcome. This is the direct antidote to that heavy, critical Saturn pressure. Remember, Saturn is always asking, is this valuable? Is this useful? The practice here is to do creative things that defiantly say, I don't care.
Make bad art on purpose.
Make useless art. Sing badly in the shower. Write a story and then burn the page. Doodle during a meeting. Allow that big, joyful Leo creative energy to flow without the Capricorn judgment of utility.
That sounds incredibly liberating, just to break that link between doing and earning or proving.
Yes. Third, dropping the mask. This is a tough one. You have to intentionally find spaces, and more importantly, people, where you don't have to be the shiny Leo, where you are allowed to be messy or boring or quiet.
Where you don't have to entertain anyone.
Where you can just be a potato. It is absolutely vital for their nervous system health to have what we could call potato time.
I love that. And the final pillar for finding ease.
Space. The ultimate overarching need for this entire chart is not control, it is space.
Space to breathe.
Space to let that wise balsamic moon synthesize all that data without the pressure of a deadline. They need to build buffers into their day. No back-to-back meetings, no rushing from one thing to the next. They need transition time.
It's so interesting. We started this whole deep dive by saying the goal is to use astrology as a mechanical blueprint. And looking at this list, it really does feel like an operating manual for a very specific piece of equipment. Warning: do not run engine for 24 hours continuously. Requires frequent cooling periods. Do not feed heavy data before sleep.
Exactly. It removes the shame. You aren't bad at life because you're tired. You are tired because you are trying to drive a high-performance sports car through a swamp. You need to either get back on the racetrack where it belongs, or you just need to turn off the engine for a while.
The source text ends with a really beautiful sentiment. It says, a fast mind is not a flaw, but it needs room to breathe.
And that struggle so many of us feel is often just about that misalignment. When a life is lived in the rhythm the chart dictates, in this case a rhythm of synthesis, then expression, then deep rest, the talent just unfolds naturally. The gifts come online without force.
Ease follows not because the effort stopped,
but because the energy finally flows where it was always meant to belong.
That is a really profound place to land. It completely challenges this cultural idea that we just need to try harder or push through. Maybe we just need to try differently.
Or maybe we need to stop trying altogether and just start listening to the machine.
So for everyone listening, whether you relate to this specific chart or just that general feeling of having a fast mind in a very loud world, here's a question we want to leave you with today. It's a provocation taken directly from the source material. Where are you performing when you should be resting?
And if you stopped performing, who might you be underneath that mask?
Summed them all over. Thank you for diving deep with us today into the mechanics of inner astrology.
It was a true pleasure.
We'll see you on the next deep dive.